Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is Ian here along with Chris.
Hey.
We are hot off the press from checking out Creed 2. Just got a chance to slip in and see it. I saw it a couple hours earlier than you, Chris. I know you're literally just getting back in from seeing it.
I'm like 15 minutes from having seen the movie.
Hardcore.
So it's still all in my eyes and my brain.
Good. That and all kinds of other feels. I'm sure there are a lot of Rocky 4 feels flying around there too.
Yeah.
Again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Of course, we don't have a review for Creed 1 because, we weren't around when Creed 1 did its thing.
No.
But we surely have some things to say about that here going into Creed 2, about what we've got here, not just in terms of performance by Michael B. Jordan, of course, lots of famous faces here, Dolph Lundgren, Sylvester Stallone, and many others, but also what this does right, what we think this misses, and everything in between. So checking this out, just looking at the legacy of just Creed, the films we have, back in, I think that was 2016, good old Sly, he got nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor on Creed.
Mm-hmm.
And another special thing to note was the direction of that movie, too. Now, Ryan Coogler was behind that, also known for Black Panther, a lot of other cool stuff. But we had a slight changing of the guard here. That's squared against Stephen Capel Jr. As far as his directing. So, naturally, I think there was a bit of expectation on my part, maybe for some of the choreography and everything that may be a little different and a little off-kilter. But Still, I felt that delivered in a lot of ways.
No, yeah, I think that was fine. I was a little surprised that they went with a different director as well, but especially because the first one, or by the first one I mean the first Creed, did such a good job of reestablishing this franchise and putting it in a different direction and a different kind of mode. I'd say Rocky Balboa, the sixth movie of the franchise, did a good job of really kind of setting that. But obviously, we're going in a whole new direction with Creed. But no, this director did a really good job of keeping that feel and keeping in line with the direction that at least this part of the franchise, this I guess a reboot, so to speak, keeping with the direction that it's going in. For sure.
I
think if you didn't know it was a different director, you probably wouldn't notice.
No, it's not very noticeable. I mean, if anything, I think the only thing, in my opinion at least, lost a bit in translation is some of the camera work itself. I felt that was a little more electric, a little bit more dynamic in the first Creed.
Yes.
But again, here though, the choreography doesn't lose anything. It's still awesome. So.
No, it is. And saying in that, it's kind of funny because it's been a bit of an evolution throughout the entire Rocky franchise. Is how things are choreographed and how over the top and unrealistic they used to be, versus especially in the last in Rocky Balboa and in the first Creed, how they went with a much more realistic feel and look to them. This one actually kind of goes back to a little bit more of a dynamic kind of choreography, which I think is fine. I think it's a perfect blend of both of them. Especially considering the context of what we're dealing with in this movie. I thought it worked out really well.
Same. I think it's a pretty on-point criticism you'll probably hear about this one, about taking this franchise too far back, going way too far backwards in the early Rockies, where you could be moving forward with the momentum of the first Creed, establishing more. I don't think so. In the basis, the reason I say that is because what great story can you have, or what great legacy, without really tying those loose ends of the past, without at least visiting those things that are so important to these characters? And I can't think of a bigger perspective for Adonis Creed himself and his father, Apollo. He goes from the first movie, really, getting into, boxing and getting into the gyms and whatnot. He just really doesn't care a whole lot about he's not letting his father's legacy dog him. Just saying, it didn't concern me. He's not me. And yet here, he's fiercely defending that legacy at the beginning, to the point where it gets him in some real trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I don't think that's reductive to this series. If anything, we might not see a third one, but I thought this helped us clear a really important elephant in the room.
It's funny that you see that. I want to touch on the last part you said there for a moment, or in a moment. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think you and I saw it a little bit differently. Like you said, we did not review Creed, and we actually haven't had much of a chance to talk about it because I actually had not seen the first Creed movie until just 2 days ago.
Oh wow.
I'd seen bits of it before then, but I made sure to sit down and watch it in length Monday night. So I think I would have some different opinions on that. I think in the first movie, he's definitely trying to be his own man.
Sure.
But at the same time, there's definitely a drive there which comes from the fact that he didn't know his father, and his father was a fighter. And I definitely think there's some debate to be had as far as the motivations
Sure.
that he has in the first movie and what drives him even in the second into this movie. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely elements there of both. I would say I think that's it's
Sure.
important in both regards. I think in the first one he definitely tries to make it about himself, but part of that film I thought was him having to accept the fact that he is Apollo Creed's son,
Right.
and you can have more than one reason for doing something, and I think
Easily.
in this movie they touch on that a lot. Motivation is a big part of this movie as well.
It is. That's really something about this that resonated with me a lot personally, as far as your reasons for being, and if said reasons are just so one track, so driven off of something you want to accomplish at the expense of everything else, at the expense of those around you, how you can really drive into some tricky territory with that, as opposed to if you really examine the reasons for what you're doing, and if that aligns with who you are as a person, your goals, what are your true objectives and aim. I think that's when you get a much purer sense of that, and it just speaks to the heart of it. Chris, I don't know if you're a fight fan or like much of a boxing fan. I know I'm a Roy Jones Jr. Is my favorite, and one reason I've always, I guess, enjoyed it, or I don't tune in all the time, but it's just the fire and the motivation. You don't know everyone's past, given, of course, but I think the fun part about a movie like this is when you get the drama side of it, and when you get the whole personality sides of it combined with the whole spectacle of what you see, with the combat itself. It makes for a really good formula. I think it makes for a really engaging story. So,
Yeah, no, I'm not a big boxing fan actually. So, yeah, I know you. I guess that might be a little surprising. No, I don't get into it too much. Obviously huge fights throughout my lifetime. I've made sure to catch. Of course,
right.
I'm old enough to remember Mike Tyson's reign and seeing
Classic.
that through the late '80s and '90s. But that was obviously the biggest thing going on during those
Sure.
days. But yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan. I'll go see a good rooster fight, but I've lost a lot of money on those. But insert your Kramer joke here, I guess, if you can catch that reference. But yeah, no, that doesn't mean I don't like a good fight movie. I've always loved the Rocky movies, except Five's. Yeah. Rocky Five's Rocky Five. It is what it is. But especially going from no, I guess all of them except for Five. Five was an attempt at doing something different, and it didn't work. But these last few have been really great. I mean, a franchise has been around this long and has done well enough to flesh out its characters and give them real motivation and make them very three-dimensional. I mean, you said at the beginning of the review, there is a lot of feels in this movie. And they do a really good job of it. It's kind of funny because I'm trying, again, I just finished seeing it. I'm trying to separate a lot of, exactly what did they play on that they knew the audience was going to feel and what they were going to expect versus fighting against those expectations while at the same time giving them something that's going to feel rewarding. Well, I haven't had a chance to really divide all of that out yet. I would have to say that ultimately, looking at those questions as a whole, I would say that they did a really good job overall of both meeting and defeating expectations.
Definitely. And I like how you touch on characterization here too. I think it's really important to look at. And I'm curious if you think if you put this in your criticism category or not too. Looking at the Russians themselves, at least the few glimpses we do get of them. Of course, mainly this centers around Victor Drago, the son of Ivan Drago. We do get a look into what the Drago family's life has been like post Rocky Four. We see Ivan as this sort of figure of, he got really dilapidated, this figure of sort of vengeance. He meets Rocky early in the film and says, hey, after that, I lost everything. This is, I was completely changed since, 30 years ago. But now through his son, having a crack at doing something he could not, to go into territory that he couldn't quite reach, I think gives him a sort of new chance and a new motivation at things, whereas he's someone who's been ditched and abandoned. This idea of, if you win, you rock. If you lose, you suck. Everybody just sort of leaves you and abandons you. There's this sort of tight casting of villains that you can't help but smirk a bit at, from the early, Rocky movies. It was, the lines were clearly drawn. The Drago's a bad guy. So Rocky's
a bad guy.
He is. But I look at that now, and especially with in the context of Creed, something that sort of brings a more kind of modern, current, edge to the boxing story. You still have a lot of those one-dimensional characterizations. In a way, it floats a bit better because this idea of abandonment, and I say that because there's a kind of cool camaraderie between Drago and his son. I like that, especially if you look at the history of someone who's been all about just, hit him hard, victory at all costs, just destroy. Seeing him come to that sort of like a little bit more of a tender side, I think is interesting. And that carries out all the way through the end. I think even when everybody else abandons them, those two are right there.
It's probably one of the more trying to think of the right word here. It probably defeats expectations a bit. I mean, they do flesh out the Dragos very well. I think a lot more than people might expect. You really get a good idea of where they're coming from, and like you said, what's happened to them.
Right.
Dolph Lundgren here, I think, he's not the best actor in this movie, but I think he shines the most because I think he shows more range and depth than he has in pretty much any of his other films.
Yeah,
he does a really good job here, and I think he as an actor understood that this is an opportunity for him to show more than he's ever had a chance to show. I mean, there's not a lot of range in The Punisher. So, and there's not a lot of range from when the last time he played Drago back in the 80s. Again,
right.
Things were very over the top, which I think was actually one of the names of the songs for the montages they had in that movie. I don't know. No, actually, Over the Top, I think was that's a horrible Sylvester Stallone movie from the 80s as well. When he was the arm wrestler, you remember that?
Oh yeah,
it's so bad.
Man.
It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's good. But they do a really good job of this, and again, much like the movie itself, it meets your expectations, and then it surpasses and goes in different directions. And I don't want to say if I say anything more than that, then I'm going to be spoiling stuff, and I don't want to do that. So.
Definitely.
But yeah, the Dragos were great. Victor Drago, the son, I mean, dude is everything he needs to be in this movie, and that's all I'm going to say about that. They did a really good job with them. They weren't quite the they weren't one-dimensional beasts like they were, but
exactly.
at the same time they were. But there's more to it, and they do a good job with that.
There is. I think there's especially even by the end, there's just this certain, I think, element of humanity that, looking back at Rocky IV, you might be sort of surprised to see. This idea of I love how legacy is contrasted here. I think both the way Drago handles it, and then also the way that Rocky handles it, through Creed. It's I think the way that's casted, the way that's born, and then how legacy runs into pride as well. How that pride manifests itself as anger on the side of Adonis. How that manifests itself as sort of a chance at former glory, a chance at revenge for the Dragos. It's everywhere. They deal with this same issue on just different sides of a coin.
Pride is a big part of this movie, and I'm glad to see that they handle it the way that they do. It can be a driving factor, obviously, but it can also be a destroyer. and they reflect this very well throughout the whole film.
Amen to that. Good stuff, man. There's an all-star cast here. Everybody from Bridget Nielsen, those we've already talked about, and Sly himself, and Dolph Lundgren and Michael B. Jordan. There's even I focus on that a minute. That appearance from Bridget brought a smile to my face. That really surprised me.
I did not know. I did not know she was going to be in there. That was interesting when she popped up.
Same, and just solid all around. I think a good, cool modern spin to a style of story that we've seen numerous times before, but still solid, still fresh, still resonates.
Can I just say real quick? Just want to comment on the fact it's something that maybe you're not sure if you're going to get or not. You do get an encounter between Rocky and Ivan Drago.
Important note.
It is everything it needs to be.
Yeah.
At the same time, you do leave it feeling a little lackluster, and I think that's just because it is shades of a more dynamic, unrealistic time. But in this more grounded part of this franchise, it was very good. I left it thinking, well, maybe that could have been a little bit more, but at the same time, I was like, no, that is actually everything it probably should have been.
Agreed. Well, it looks like we're rounding that corner. If we're going to rate this, what are we going to rate this out of? What's our metric this time?
1 out of 10 championship belts.
Man.
It's the only way it's got to go.
All right. Out of championship belts, I'm going to take my crack at this one first. Look, I really like this one, man. I was really feeling it. Maybe it was just the right time for this to hit. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Okay, 9 out of 10 championship belts. I am also going to give it 9 out of 10. I think this movie does a really good job of wrapping up any loose ends that came from the previous 7 movies. I'm glad it gave everything the ending that it needed. There's some great touching moments with Rocky as well, and a storyline that he endures throughout this. Besides the main story of this movie, they do a really good job with that. I think it really put a great ending on all that. I'm looking forward to the future of this franchise with Creed and where they go from here, because I think they have really put everything to bed really well, and at the same time they've really built some really interesting things for the future, and I'm looking forward to him moving forward into his own stories and out of the shadow of the previous stories. Kind of goes together with the stories themselves.
Hey, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. And I'm also smiling because we're in sync here. That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Glad you really enjoyed it too. Hey, any of you out there, if you've seen this, what did you think? You agree, disagree, any of the criticisms, the praises, whatever we got for this one? Hey, we want to hear from you guys. Please toss us a comment, post up. Also, hey, by all means, toss a like our way. And if you want to hear more content like this on our channel and other reviews, we will still have plenty more coming at you right here. But be sure to tune into the backlog that we've already got posted here. That is going to do it for us, though. So we want to thank you guys again for tuning in. We appreciate it. We love it. Stay tuned right here on our channel for more reviews, more Let's Plays, and plenty more awesome content. Take it easy, everybody. Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, or anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but it'd be great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksawmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, dig up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.